All right, back one more time on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe, Tim Bielik, Lance Reisland. All right, let's kind of recap this draft now in question mode. Favorite pick, Tim?
I think I would go DTR, although I would not expect him to play a lot. I don't think he'd be more than a spot starter, I think, in the NFL level, just unless he gains 10, 15 pounds, continues to work on his accuracy. But I think as far as, filling a void of a developmental backup quarterback, a guy who can back up Deshaun Watson for a handful of years, maybe not just his rookie contract, maybe a couple of years down the road, maybe a guy you flip for an asset later on, kind of like what the New England Patriots did with Jimmy Garoppolo all those years back. I think they got a second-round pick out of San Francisco for him, I believe, back in the day. But DTR to me is an ascending guy. I always talked before how much I like when players play their best football in their senior year. I thought that's exactly what he was doing last season. And I made it a point specifically after he got drafted. I wanted to watch specifically the games against Washington and Utah. The Washington game in particular, if you're a Browns fan, you want to get excited about DTR, you want to get excited for what you're probably going to see a lot in the preseason, watch the Washington game. I mean, he was sensational that game.
Lance, your favorite pick?
Well, I'm going to say up front, offense, defensive line, I'm going Jones. And I think first and foremost, I like Jones for everything we all talked about. But what I really like is that there hasn't been much competition for Jed Wills and Conklin in terms of you knew those guys were backups. Hudson, all those other guys are backups. This guy comes in with a legit chance at some point to push these guys for playing time and push these guys in terms of, I watched about 5 games of Jed Wills. I wrote an article on him last week, and he's really frustrating to watch on film at times because he's so talented, and yet he takes, sometimes he's not 100%. It seems like. So you get a guy who can push these guys now, maybe a little light a little fire. Not that they need it, not that room need it, but I think he brings legit competition to that tackle spot. I also like his potential. It's just like Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown did not have a good combine at all. DeJuan Jones had a great combine. Again, he can do things in pass protection that no one else can do with those long arms and that massive body. So I think he's a guy who can, play right. I think he's a guy who can eventually play that left tackle. He can, widen his split out there, shorten that corner. And I think he's a guy who down the road will be the starting tackle, whether it's right or left is up in the air. But I think he's going to have a chance to be really, really good.
Most head-scratching pick, Tim?
I think for me, and, this was a draft I graded an A-. I thought this was, Andrew Berry did about as well as you could. But I think, to me, when the Siaki Ika pick came across, I was kind of thinking in my head, okay. Because it took me a little bit to understand the pick, to understand kind of why it was there. But I think for me, there's more upside, available at the end of the third round, particularly, out of Tomiwa Adebawore, the defensive tackle from Northwestern, who went to the Colts at pick 110 right before DeJuan Jones went off the board. I thought it would have been an interesting pick just because adding more pass rush depth in the middle of the defensive front. And I don't know what kind of juice Ika has as a pass rusher because we haven't really seen him play at the ideal weight. I think he would probably play in the pros, which is in the 330s. Not saying he can't get there. I mean, it'd be great if some of these guys could go prove me wrong. I mean, I've been wrong on so many guys throughout the years, particularly Jalen Hurts. So I just thought, for the guy they were picking, to me, it seemed one-dimensional, at least in the beginning. But then over time, you kind of understand why they made the pick and, why he kind of fits the role that the Browns might have for him. And that's the thing I've said about Andrew Berry's drafts for 4 years. You may not always agree with the pick right away, but over time, and even, in just the immediate aftermath, you can understand why he made that pick.
Lance, the most head-scratching.
Well, Ika was mine early, but scheme-wise, he would have been mine if Woods is the D coordinator, just because he's not a heavy guy in terms of always taking on doubles. And, we'll see what happens in a Schwartz scheme. This is not going to make Tim happy, but my head scratcher is the quarterback, and the reason why is because I think they had ability to get J.L. Skinner or Israel Abanikanda was available, and then my favorite safety was Daniel Scott. So not that DTR wasn't a good quarterback, or not that DTR doesn't fit, and I like him. So the head scratcher was more of what they needed. Again. The quarterback that they got, I think, is the perfect fit. In fact, I agree with Tim. I liked him better than a number of the quarterbacks were taken after or before any of those guys. I thought he was one of the Browns, besides the top guys, he was as good a fit the Browns could get. But those guys who were available now, obviously with McLeod signing, the safety is not a big, huge thing. they still don't have a ball hawk in the back. And, J.L. Skinner is the best ball hawk.